Hello and welcome back to the American Experience. Today we're going to be doing a book list because I know Christmas is around the corner and I know a lot of people probably want a book list so that they can put something on the Christmas list or something they can ask, their special someone, their parents, I don't know, their kids, brothers and sisters to buy them. And obviously, books are kind of cheap and they're a cheap present. They're a present most people are willing to give because they're not cheap. And so today we're going to be doing that. All right. Before I begin, let me remind you to click that subscribe button, click that like button, ring the notification bell, drop a comment in the description, drop a comment below if you have any questions, comments, concerns, statements to be made. I just love saying that. Okay, yeah, we're gonna get to book list, book recommendation list. Before I begin, there's two people, two authors I really like, and so I'll go over a bit in depth about why I like them. These two are Pat Buchanan and Ron Paul. Ron Paul was a member of the House of Representatives, I believe, since the 1980s. He was a presidential candidate in 1988, 2008, and 2012. And he ran for the Libertarian Party in 1988, and he ran for the Republican Party. He ran in the primaries in 2008, 2012. Pretty well known guy, libertarian, that sort of thing. I like his books. I have two of his books, and I think they're really good books. Then we have Pat Buchanan, who was an aide for Ronald Reagan during his time in office, and then he also ran for president in 1992, 1996, and 2000. Along with that, he was a major political commentator. He worked for CNN, MSNBC. He was a regular person on Fox News and all that. He has written way more books than Ron Paul. Ron Paul has written 3 books. Ron Paul wrote Liberty Defined, End the Fed, and I believe The Revolution, a Manifesto. Pat Buchanan wrote, Death of the West, Suicide of Superpower, Where the Right Went Wrong, all of that stuff. He wrote a ton of books. Churchill, Churchill, and the Unnecessary War, I think it was, about World War II. A great author, and that sort of thing. Both Ron Paul and Pat Buchanan have very engaging reading styles. They're not kind of boring books. And some of the books I will recommend are kind of more academic books that you literally have to push yourself to read. But Ron Paul and Pat Buchanan, very easy books to read, very big books to recommend. Obviously, they have ideological differences. Pat Buchanan's a nationalist and a paleoconservative. Ron Paul's Mises Institute libertarian. He's basically literally the step before you're an anarchist. So obviously difference there. Although they did have agreements on stuff. They had agreements on NAFTA, that shouldn't exist. They had agreements on the U.S. should be not in the UN. They had agreements, I think, on foreign wars, on the national debt, on stuff like that. They really agreed on economics and free trade and all that. But overall, they agreed on a lot of stuff. Both were pro-life, both were pro-gun rights, all of that. And the reason I'll recommend their books, again, very engaging to the reader, very easy to read, all of that. So I'm going to go over each book individually, but later. But I just wanted to start off with, I recommend any book from those two people. I know Ron Paul wrote and edited some other books. I know Pat Buchanan has written way more books than I've ever read. They're all good books. Trust me, normally I don't recommend books that I have not personally read, but based off of what I've read from these two, I think any Pat Buchanan or any Ron Paul book is good. So I just want to start off with that. With that in mind, we're going to go in sections. We're going to hit economics first, economics and finance. Then we're going to talk about, I'll just go over name books. First, we're going to go over the economic and finance section of books. I only have 2 books to recommend here. And they are End the Fed by Ron Paul and The Creature from Jekyll Island from G. Edward Griffin. Both are really good books. End the Fed by Ron Paul is a more basic book and why the Federal Reserve shouldn't exist and why central banking is bad. Ron Paul kind of takes more the libertarian, it's mostly just governments kind of take, and he doesn't really go deep into the banking cabal and stuff like that. Whereas G. Edward Griffin, I'm almost done The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a thick book. It's 600 pages. And good book. I haven't even finished it yet. I'm like 400 pages in, and it's a really good book. Really dense, really deep, really good. By the way, he's revised it like 50 different times. He released it in the 90s and it's been revised, I think, 5 times. I have the 5th edition, hardcover 5th edition. You can find it on Amazon. Ron Paul's book is good. It's a good starter book if you want to know why Federal Reserve isn't good. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Federal Reserve is our central bank that has basically control over our monetary policy and a lot of our financial and economic policy. They're kind of the reason why we have inflation at the rate we do have right now. So, if you're don't even know what the Fed is, recommend you look it up. Then go buy Ron Paul's book, because Ron Paul's book is more basic and it's kind of gets straight to the point because he's a congressman and it's like a 100 something page book. Again, G. Edward Griffin's, it goes way more in depth about banking, about the banking of ball, about what a fraud, fractional reserve, and credit creation banking is. He goes in depth about the history of Rothschild, of banking influence over the U.S. J. Edward Griffin goes over the different central banks in the U.S. and how they all failed in their jobs and duties. He goes over some stuff about the national debt, some stuff about how major banking firms led to how the bankers may have created Soviet Russia and World War I and World War II. You can agree or disagree with his takes on those 3 things, but I think his takes on banking, the Federal Reserve, and all that are very, very in depth. I actually, for my Halloween special, I read like the beginning of his book, and it's really good. He writes it in a very engaging style, and so does Ron Paul. They're both great books, but J. Edward Griffin goes more in depth. Ron Paul's more basic. J. Edward Griffin is like $40. Ron Paul's like 13. So there is a 9-day difference, by the way, between the two. One is shorter, gets to the point because Ron Paul was a presidential candidate. One is longer and is more of a more of an in-depth look on why the Federal Reserve is bad. That's kind of all for economics. I mean, I don't know, economics for dummies. I don't really know. I haven't really read a ton of economics books. I just kind of read a lot of economic theory from certain websites, so I guess I'll name those. Compact Magazine has some decent articles on tariffs. I don't know, they're good. Mises Institute has some good stuff on free market economics, and the Chronicles magazine is a pretty good book. That's actually one started by Pat Buchanan. That has a good one on free market economics, free trade, all of that. By the way, they're anti-free trade at the Chronicles magazine. So I have to recommend those 3 websites. And the Lew Rockwell, LewRockwell.com is a pretty good place too. They're a bit more clickbaity, but they're okay. They're like essays by various contributors. So I'll recommend all those. In terms of the next section of books, we're going to be going over 2 essential you must have: Bible and the Constitution, Declaration of Independence. If you don't have any of these documents, I don't even know if you want to wait for Christmas. You should buy them right now. Bible, obviously, you should get first. And by the way, churches give it out for free. Not only is it a major book because of how historically influential it was in Western civilization. That's a bedrock for Western civilization, but also because it's going to save your eternal soul. So, I recommend you get it. Go to a church. If you don't know much about Christianity, recommend you do both of those things. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, dude, it costs $7 to get them. Anyways, they're good. All right, so that's kind of it for that, and then I'm gonna go into political books. We're gonna start off with Pat Buchanan with his book Death of the West. That's just kind of a cultural book about how the United States culturally is dying. He actually wrote it in 2001, and it's a really good book still. It's about Great Replacement, how people of European descent are dying off, how Christianity in the U.S. is slowly dying too, and all of that. It's a good book. And then we have Ron Paul, Liberty Defined. That was the first major book I kind of read by Ron Paul, and it's a really good book. It's 400 or so pages, or maybe it's just 200. It literally just takes every issue, and I have some disagreements with him on free trade and border security, but because he's a libertarian. But a lot of stuff on surveillance, on the Second Amendment, on affirmative action, all that is pretty good stuff. on Zionism. He has some pretty good takes on that. So I have to recommend Liberty Defined by Ron Paul. Democracy, the God That Failed by Hans Hermann Hoppe. I read that one this past August, September. Really good book, 200 or so pages. Goes in depth about why democracy is a horrible system, blah, 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 or why the democracy we have right now is bad. Hoppe his take is he wants private property law anarchy, but really his arguments support monarchy. His arguments support just anything that's just not pro the democracy system we have right now. Great book, very interesting book. I read it, and at first I was like, okay, well, this guy might be nuts. And then I read it, and I kind of realized a lot of his arguments were very logical and very well thought out. So I recommend you read Democracy, the God That Failed by Hans Hermann Hoppe. With that, I'm also going to recommend Truce, the Future of America First by Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't agree with Vivek Ramaswamy in all things. As you know, he's a civic nationalist. I'm just kind of a nationalist. I don't know. I don't really know my takes on that yet. But his book, Truce, the Future of America First, he does do a very good job on finding studies in defense of the nuclear family, why the climate change thing is way overblown, stuff about, I think, free speech, stuff about 9/11 and conspiracy theories and why they're not entirely wrong, and the trans issue. He has some other stuff he talks about too. Really good book, really in depth. I recommend it. Oh God, he also debates that even though he's a Hindu. So hey, if you're a Christian out there, just he also talks about nationalism. Really good book. I'm gonna recommend it. It's a really basic book, but if you read it, you're gonna get a better grasp on a lot of the modern issues. And he cites really good sources. So that is Truce, the Future of America First by Vivek Ramaswamy. Next up, Conscience of a Conservative by Barry Goldwater. Kind of one of the old OG political books out there. It's very, very small. I think it's like 60 pages. It's a very small pamphlet. And it's basically like literally a cornerstone of modern conservative thought. It's by Barry Goldwater, who, for those of you who don't know, was a presidential candidate in 1964. He was basically the harbinger of the Reagan Revolution. He was Reagan before there was a Reagan. Really good book. I have to recommend. Very short, very good. He talks a lot about Social Security, welfare state, and debt, national debt. And even then in 1960s, he had some pretty good remarks. And foreign aid. Do note, he's writing his book in the 60s with the threat of the Soviet Union, so some of the stuff he has on foreign policy and foreign aid I would not recommend now. But for the time being, I think he was somewhat correct. So that's a very good book. That is, again, Conscience of a Conservative by Barry Goldwater. Again, very cheap book. Next one, I'm going to go The Authoritarian Moment by Ben Shapiro. I don't really like Ben Shapiro anymore. I'm not a big fan of a lot of what he supports, especially his big support of Israel and all that. But his book, The Authoritarian Moment, about the American left and how they attacked free speech and the woke mob and all that the past couple of years, is a really good book. I have to recommend it. I personally found it very good. Very big book, but a good book, so I have to recommend that. I have some Hillsdale papers that I recommend. Hillsdale sets out a monthly newsletter called the Imprimis, and I read they compile them every few years into a big book. I have one of those. Those are good. Those are just essays by contributing people. Often they're pretty well known and famous. I have to recommend that. Oh man, no, there's another book by Ben Shapiro I could recommend. It's The Establishment is Dead. It's just his thoughts and ideas about the election of Donald Trump in 2016. He was a very avid anti-Trump Republican back in those days, and I think it's important to realize that for a guy who loves to call himself America First, he certainly was not America First when America First began, and in fact, he criticizes, America First patriots like Pat Buchanan and stuff all the time. And so I think it's important to read that, just not because I think it's important to read that because it's important to realize that Ben Shapiro's not America First. And I think that book kind of solidifies anyone's opinion. I read it when I was a Ben fan and I thought he was right on everything. Now I'm rereading it and I was like, oh, well, whatever you want to say, he definitely was historically very anti-America first. He's still anti-America first. It's just now Trump has moved closer to Ben Shapiro, and so Ben Shapiro can mask himself in the Trump vibe and all that. And I don't think that's cool. I don't think that's very intellectually honest. But I think we can call him out on it, so I'll call him out. You're not America first, Ben Shapiro. And The Establishment is Dead by Ben Shapiro is a really good book about that. Communist Manifesto. Read it. Very short book. There's one on Amazon selling for $3. Very short read. I recommend you read it, not because I agree with the ideas, although I think there were a few ideas that Marx got right, but maybe you have to read it. Maybe I have to read it again. Yeah, no, it's a very good, very short book, very basic, like a platform of modern day socialism. So I recommend you read it. It's like the bedrock of it. That sort of thing. Besides that, I could go into some fictional books I could recommend. Obviously, first and foremost, 1984 by George Orwell. Basic book, everyone knows. Good dystopian novel about government overreach and all that. I like it. Obviously, it goes a bit deeper than government overreach. It goes into technocratic control and all that. It's a very great book. Animal Farm by George Orwell is a really good allegory of the Soviet Union. It's pretty small. I recommend you read it. 1984, by the way, all these are books I'm recommending now are fiction. Next up, we have Fahrenheit 451. That one's not even a political book. It's like a criticism of a world that embraces basically just low attention spans, technology, and doesn't embrace books and low attention spans and that sort of thing. A really good book, shows why why a society built on uneducated people glued to TV screens is not a good thing to do, and so or glued to anything, TV, computer, phone, any of that, which I know is ironic because you're probably listening to this on a TV, phone, or computer. I'm recording this on a MacBook. But regardless, it is a really good book. You might have read it when you were younger. I recommend you read it again. Really good book. Very boring book. So, it goes without saying, not all books that are good are fun to read. With that being said, I think that's kind of it. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I just had to quickly go check what books I had and all that. Yeah, that's it. So next year I'm gonna probably have a better book list after I read some more books. I had some Pat Buchanan and Paul Gottfried. Paul Gottfried was a close companion to Pat Buchanan. I had some books on my own Christmas list, and I'm hoping I get those. Yeah, that's it. Again, any Ron Paul, any Pat Buchanan book is probably perfectly fine. So yeah, I hope you guys liked the episode. Kept it short, kept it sweet. I kind of wanted to just make a quick little book recommendations reading list. Future announcements of future podcast episodes. Probably gonna do I did a Thanksgiving special, but I didn't release it because I was visiting family and my producers couldn't listen to the show in time. So instead, I'm not gonna release it. And what's gonna happen is I'm just gonna add the topic for that show, which was what is American culture? And why is it important for us to define it? I'm going to add that on to my Christmas special, which I hope to be doing with some of my friends. I'm probably only going to have this episode and the Christmas special out for December, to be honest. Christmas special will probably be a longer episode, probably 2 or 3 parts. I'd say 30 or something minutes. It's going to be me and my buddies, Jaden, maybe my buddy Henry and all that, talking on here. Giving our inputs on what we do for Christmas. And then, of course, I will have a little monologue on what is American culture and why is it important for us to define it. So with that being said, thanks for listening. Hope you have a great Christmas season. I wish you many presents underneath the Christmas tree. And that is it. So this is the American Experience broadcasting out of the greatest country on God's green earth. Till next time, stay safe, stay free. Remember, America first. Till next time, have a good one, folks.